You're listening to the Online Business Blueprint brought to you by platformlaunchers.com. I'm John Stange, and it's great to have you with us this week, as always, because here we talk about building and growing and monetizing your online platform. We talk about taking your platform, turning it into a paycheck, and ultimately allowing that to be something that you can use to be a blessing to many people. And if you were listening to last week's episode, you heard that I promised that we were going to have a special guest this week, and she is here with us, and I'm very excited to be able to introduce to you Ashley Logsdon. I'll tell you a little bit about her before I guess I formally introduce her, but Ashley has spent the past 25 years helping people move from simply working a job to creating a life they truly thrive in. She's worked with lots and lots of people. We have lots and lots of common friends that she's had the opportunity to interact with over the years. She worked alongside her father, Dan Miller. Dan Miller has been a guest with us before in the 48 Days community, and now she's continuing that legacy with the Eagle Alliance community, empowering creative thinkers to live out their unique callings. Ashley, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be on. I'm
Well,
excited about the conversation.
I am too, because I love talking about stuff like this. And I thought maybe it'd be kind of fun just to start off by talking a little bit about legacy, because you're really building on something special that you've been doing for a while. And now you're continuing it after a little bit of a pause. You worked side by side with your father, Dan Miller, for many years. And
Mhm.
as you're segueing into this season of life and service and being a blessing to people, I just wonder, just for starters, as you transition into this season here, what are some of the most important lessons that you would say you learned from him about purpose and meaningful work?
Oh, wow. Boy, to narrow it down with all of the
Super
many.
easy question,
I
right?
know. My goodness, we have so many Danisms and things that we can just pull up Dan quotes online. There is a lot. And really, when it comes to leaving a legacy, Dad was very adamant, especially when we did realize the end was coming. He was very adamant to say, I don't want to be propped up beside the jukebox when I die. And he kept saying that over and over again. And we talked a lot about legacy, and we had the beautiful honor of having 11 couples, his closest, dearest friends from a very long time, come and us just sit and talk in communion in their living room, talking about what does a legacy look like. And a legacy for 48 days for my father, for what I want to emulate, is not propping him up by the jukebox,
Right.
not just repeating Danisms, but looking at how does his impact give me the personal responsibility to step into my own greatness.
Hmm.
And that's really what we feel the legacy is the best legacy Dan Miller can leave is the impact that he made in our hearts, that gives us the desire to say, this is who I am, this is why I am here, and this
Mm.
is the impact I will make on others. And that is what we have continued to do. So after a period of, yeah, of grieving and of us kind of navigating, not just grieving as a family, but actually grieving as a large community, as we
Hmm.
all went through this. We're now at a point to bring back with intentionality a lot of those things that were so valuable to my father, and speaking it through the voice of Sheila and me, who have been side by
Hmm.
side with him for so long, as opposed to just echoing Dan Miller. So it's been really cool to see the things that we can bring into. While Dad had a lot of passion with the 10X and the entrepreneur solopreneur movement, I have always had a very strong passion in the marriage and family and relationships arena.
Hmm.
And Sheila has always had a passion in the marketing arena. All three
Mm.
of them are still alive and well. It's just that those two now have really been able to come into the forefront as we help people at that base level of, before you get to whatever you're dreaming about work-wise, let's talk about who are you in your home and how do you show up there? And even deeper
Hmm.
than that, who are you with yourself, and how do you show up, and how well do you know who you are? So we pull
Hmm.
it all the way back, and then we just focus on that impact and that awareness of everything that we do with intention moving forward.
That's great. I wonder, this has been a season of transition, obviously, for you,
Mhm.
for your family, for the 48 Days business, for the Eagle Alliance, all of these things that you're doing. And you've been, I mean, you've been working in this field for a good long time, helping a lot of people for a bunch of years at this point now with coaching and, like you said, with marriage and family and business and what that all looks like. And I kind of wonder, you know, well, first of all, you're taking a step of faith to do some of the things that you're doing, right? To continue this work and invest in people like you're doing. And I've heard a lot of people that are very excited about the fact that you're making this available. But I wonder, what has this transition taught you about leadership and legacy and calling and things like that as you've been transitioning, in this respect in your own life and work?
The biggest, I think, reminder is all leaders are humans as well. And
Hmm.
we have permission to pause.
Hmm.
And that is okay. I think that it is very hard as a leader to lead when you're reeling yourself.
Yeah.
And yet, how many of us have our act together all the time? We don't. We are
Hmm.
if we wait until we're perfect and we have everything under control, we never do something.
Hmm.
And yet, leading amidst our imperfection, amidst our grief, amidst our anger, our insecurities, our immaturity, any of those things still can make it for rocky road. And
Hmm.
so I kind of started using this as my mantra. Even it was actually right before Dad died or got his diagnosis. I started really focusing on two key phrases, and this is for leadership and life, and that is having grace for growth and permission to pivot. And I
Hmm.
think that those are really valuable and really important as a leader to emulate. And I am not one for words being the end all be all. I will look at
Hmm.
your actions every time. What is the fruit of what you are doing on a daily basis? What is the fruit of your impact? And I hope that we all can move forward by setting goals and recognizing that as we grow and gain new insights, those things will shift.
Hmm.
And that's a beautiful thing and not something to be ashamed of or embarrassed of. But when we can show our own ability to grow, that's a beautiful leadership skill. And I think that in this situation, it was so in my face that I cannot just sit here and run this business like I'm not grieving the loss of my father.
Hmm.
And so I had to do a pause and shutting down a membership community that was not only a robust and thriving community, but one that, Mighty Networks was using as an example of success.
Yeah.
Here I am about to say, all right, guys, I'm closing the whole thing down. That was a hard call to do. And
Hmm.
yes, when it comes to the finances, I probably could have made more money trying to keep it alive. But when it comes to effective leadership, I sure as heck could not have led it well at a
Hmm.
point where I needed the healing and the space to be with my family and to focus on that.
Oh
So
yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing is just that more affirmed reminder of we are all human, and the more that we can be honest and show up with integrity even when we don't have it all together,
Hmm.
and recognize the need for breaks and for grace in the process, the better that
Hmm.
we can lead and make an impact.
Yeah, without a doubt. I remember when it was announced, when you sent out the emails and things like that related to the community taking a pause
Mhm.
and shutting down. It was a community I was part of, and I know some people were really, really active in the community, and I thought, boy, they have a really good thing going on here, but that was a very intentional decision that you made to pause that. But I think I agree with you. I think that that was the right it was the right thing at the right time. It's also one of those things where you look at it and you say it doesn't need to stay shut down forever. It can take, you said, permission to pivot, this being, a key mantra. That's something I have to just tell you, just in my own personal life. I don't easily give myself that permission.
Mm.
I don't know why. And maybe, I have a series of questions that I hope to get to in our conversation here, but I have to tell you, why is that such a struggle for us to pivot? I mean, I'm confessing to you that there are different times in life, ministry, business, things like that. It really was a season to pivot, and I've had to spend so much time talking myself into pivoting. I just had to make a pivot, even within platform launchers, some of the things that I'm doing
Mhm.
there. really needed to pivot some of them. That was a really hard decision for me to make. Could you just hang on that thought for a little bit? And maybe if someone's listening to us and they're thinking, maybe it's time to pivot something in their life, what counsel would you give, or what sort of personal insights do you have as somebody that's actually lived this out?
Yeah. Oh, I mean, and that's such a great thing to point out, and so hones into what is really kind of the core essence of what I focus on in 48 days and what I spend a lot of time as setting as the foundation. And that's understanding kind of how we tick, what motivates us, and what triggers our fears and insecurities. And I use this doing the DISC personality assessment, not
Hmm.
as a label, but as an easy insight into self-awareness. And that's exactly
Hmm.
what I use it for, because there's no right or wrong. You can have a profile that's completely off, that's nothing like you. And it tells me a lot about how well you know yourself and how well
Mm.
connected you are with yourself. And so when I look at the different personality styles, we have different tendencies. I mean, we are
Hmm.
adaptable by nature, and so we have the ability to adapt in a lot of ways. But when we go so far out of our element of the norm of what recharges us, it
Hmm.
can throw us. And while change is exciting for some people, it's very terrifying and unsettling for others.
And
And
maybe even
so
for most, right?
yes, because the
Yeah.
majority of our population is, if I were to go by DISC, the majority of our population is the S mentality, which are the
Yes.
supporters, the great listeners, non-confrontational. They are the
Hmm.
ones that want to be a part of the peace and part of the community and keep things,
Mm.
don't rock the boat, keep things
Right.
smooth. And so the best encouragement I have is, first off, we have to face the facts that change
Hmm.
is inevitable. Change will happen, regardless of anything we do. There's too much that's outside of our control.
Hmm.
I'm down here in Florida. One hurricane changes
Yeah.
everything we're doing
Oh,
for the
yeah.
next stretch. The loss of a loved one changes
Hmm.
everything. A move, a shift in your work environment, sickness. There are so many things that maybe without outside of our control that can change. And
Hmm.
so we're not going to avoid change. So how can we navigate it? Well, if you know kind of where your motivators are, it's what helps you to go through those difficult times. And
Hmm.
so for that S personality style, for example, consistency is really valuable. Having some steadiness and some routine, because loss of security is a very uncomfortable feeling, and
Oh, yeah.
change is what? Insecure. It's loss of
Right.
security because you don't know what you're going into. So for every change, as much as you can balance something that is secure. So if I know that I'm going to, for example, I'm shifting into a new job and I don't know what to expect and I don't know what my day is going to be like. I do know, though, that for the past year, I have woken up every morning and had a cup of tea and had at least 30 minutes to an hour to read. I'm going to keep that up. And I have a
Mm.
consistent thing every single day. I don't know what I may face when I go in, but I know that my day is starting with me in control and me choosing my moment of peace
Mhm.
and recharge. And so those little moments of consistency, the little things that you can have as kind of your security, your tried and true, look for the rhythms that feed you,
Mm.
because the people that love the change, they're the ones going, that rhythm is boring, I don't like the routine. They're switching things up, so this isn't for them. If you like the routine, get solid with your routines, especially during transition times. And that doesn't mean that you have to, boot camp your life and schedule out every minute. I look for the bookends. How are you starting your day and how are you ending your day? And is there something that you can do, a little give? I mean, even down to, telling desperate moms, 2 minutes in the bathroom, you lock the door and you don't do anything but just stand there for 2 minutes. It's still something, but something that is a give, that is a consistent, because when things are stressful, if you know you have a tried and true that will allow you to recharge in that moment, it helps you to manage the storm a lot better than if you're just out there and seeing there's no end in sight.
Right.
So,
Yeah, that's I'm one of those people that to a degree does well with change, but it's change on my timing and change on,
uh-huh.
that I create. I have this strong impulse of I don't like to quit, right? And I don't like if something feels like a lack of loyalty. So I have some of that going on in the back of my mind, and I think that that's why with certain responsibilities in life, it has when it's been time to pivot, I've really had to think long and hard and just pray about some of those things and sometimes have needed a bit of a nudge, something
Yeah.
to help nudge me in that. Now, this season here, you're pivoting, but you're also continuing something here. The Eagle Alliance community here that you're putting together or reforming, however you want to describe it here, it sounds like a powerful continuation of the overall vision of what you've been doing and working with when you're working with your dad, what you're doing now as well. I wonder if people are looking for a community to be part of, something that's going to encourage them in their entrepreneurial efforts, their life efforts, the different ambitions they have, things like that. What's the Eagle Alliance community all about? How's it helping people thrive in life and in work and some of those things? Could you give us a good picture of that?
Yes. In the past, and what I have envisioned, well, usually when I think of an online community, is I think of the social media aspect of it.
Hmm.
It's an online platform, and some people have done it in Facebook. When we did ours, we did it in Mighty Networks. We took people over there. Pros and cons of navigating a whole new social media platform.
Yep.
And a lot of times there's a lot of that sort of engagement going on. And I kind of feel, or I felt, and I had gotten to the point, especially with just how volatile our environment has gotten and
Mhm.
how divisive it has gotten. I feel that social media has, unfortunately, there's been a lot of shifting from it being a place to communicate and connect to being a place to stand and shout my stance.
Yep.
And I actually heard a younger adult recently tell me, "I don't post on here for conversation. I post so they know where I stand." And I thought, how are we missing the mark so much for what building community is about?
Mhm.
Just yelling at each other what we believe and what we think is just making noise. We're not
Right.
talking with each other, we're talking at each other. And
Mm.
that's what I did not want to spend my time and energy on. Quite honestly, I got burned out. I actually stopped posting after 8 years of travel where I posted daily, sharing our stories and what's going on in our family. I did a cold hard stop this year, and I pulled away and I took a break from it. And so when we started looking at what kind of community do we want to build, well, I don't want to just be trying to pull out social media stuff and let's bring some
Mhm.
fun and let's engage in this post and this post. Really, hands down, the best feedback and the thing that we have always consistently heard is that the place where people have been fed the most has either been in our one-on-one coaching or it has been
Mm.
interacting in live calls. And
Mhm.
so that's what we spend our focus on. And so this community, while we do have a free Facebook group and you can do that, our focus is really on interaction in live calls. So we have an application process so that we get to know you and we say, okay, if you're in here, are you willing to show up, not just to receive, but what can you offer as well?
Mhm.
And that's something where we kind of are an in between a community and a mastermind. My
Mhm.
dad always had a desire to lead a mastermind, not as the leader with others around, but as a community of peers where everybody carried it and challenged one another. While this is obviously we're curating our phone calls in some ways, we also are really asking that of our community. For those who have something to share, we're giving them a potential platform to share it. We
Mhm.
are, and we're helping people to learn how to engage in accountability and growth in a way that recognizes their impact and the give and take approach. And
Mm.
so, our desire is to offer a safe environment for people to really start at that foundational base of who am I? Why am I here? What are my hopes and dreams for myself and how I show up in this world? And then,
Mm.
how is that going into my family? And what are we reflecting in our home? And is my family on the same page with where we are going? And then can we as a family step out and make as positive of an impact in this world as we can? That's
Mhm.
my goal for my personal family. And so I have invited others to walk the walk with me in this
Mhm.
community for us to look at ways to do that. And we happen to have some pretty amazing resources of amazing members who have their own credible audiences, have their own sweet spots of skill sets, their own
Mhm.
insights. And I have found such beauty in being able to connect different people. You know, I have somebody that's wanting to write
Mhm.
an academic book and somebody who's a dissertation coach. And I'm going, hey guys, let's have a conversation. So being a connector and allowing a safe place for people to challenge each other and grow in a positive way and to focus on what we can do for the good
Mhm.
versus what we're frustrated about in the bad is
Right.
really a big highlight and focus for the Eagles Alliance.
I like that. Do you still find a lot of people that are connecting with you and connecting with the Eagle Alliance are at a spot where they're maybe they've been serving in a career for a while that drains them. Maybe they feel like their life is going in a direction that just feels like they're feeling stuck. They're not exactly sure how to put their finger on it. Is that something that you still see as a common theme from people that approach you and want to partner with the Eagle Alliance?
Definitely, and I feel that I'm trying to um, diffuse this concept or eliminate this concept of entrepreneurism only being in one way as my father, Dan Miller, did it.
Right.
And these are the conversations Dad and I would have so much about. I would talk to him about, you know, is it really 48 days to the work you love? Is it really about the days or is it about a mindset? You know, an eaglepreneur is an eaglepreneur only somebody who is a solopreneur who's doing it completely on their own, or is that somebody who has a growth mindset and sees an entrepreneurial opportunity no matter where they are? And who sees
Mhm.
themselves as their own boss no matter where they are. And that's really I want to get there and I
Mhm.
keep debunking this idea of what work is. Work
Mhm.
and what you do for some people like my father signified so much of his meaning and purpose.
Mhm.
And we celebrate that and there will be those people. And I also don't believe that is this little child who has aspired from the get-go to be a trash collector, and that is the only thing that they want to do in their life is collect trash. And yet I know a man who we lived next door to who was a trash collector in New York his whole life, retired from there, absolutely loved it. Why? Because it supported the life he thrived in. And that is
Mhm.
the key, is not about what is the right work or the best idea of an entrepreneurial job. What we want to do is we are business focused coaching here, but what we are doing is saying, let's look at your life. What type of life do you want? Now let's find the work that supports that. And
Mhm.
our family can attest to that looking a variety of ways. I just calculated with my husband, and if we actually throw my daughter, who just got a job in there, we have a
Mhm.
total of 10 different jobs or 10 different ways of income coming into our household right
Nice.
now.
Mhm.
Is it because I need to carry every single job? No, not necessarily. But for
Mhm.
us and for our personality style and the life we live, it affords us some variety and some
Yes.
flexibility, and we're loving it. It's been really interesting to see the way. And so those are the sorts of things we share. I mean, what are these 10 avenues of income? How
Hmm.
can we do this? How can we think outside of the box and have money work for us instead of us just working for money and hoping that somehow the life will show up in the process?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting. One of the things that has always really resonated with me with the 48 Days community, Eagles Alliance community, is some of these mindset ideas related to work and why we work. I remember your dad at one point saying that he was talking to, I guess, some of the neighbors and some of the people that they've met in their community that ask him, "Why are you still doing this? Like, why are you working? Why you don't need to do this any longer?" And I've often thought very much in line with what you're just talking about, this idea of multiple streams of income. Over the past decade in particular, that's something I personally emphasized in my own life, and it has had such a wonderful effect on our family in general. It's interesting when you go from basically most people just have one traditional source of income and everything they do seems very tied to that. And it's kind of interesting to discover what you'll do with your time, what you'll choose to do when you no longer work for
Right,
money. And
right.
watching myself and my family go through that transition and really wrestling with that in my mind, it's like, what will you do with your life when this is not the reason that you're doing. And so we're living it right now. I look at the things that
Mhm.
I'm doing. I'm not doing the things that I'm doing now for the financial aspect. I'm doing that for the sense of this is what I'm called to do. This is how I'm
Exactly.
spending my life because I honestly believe this is how God wants me to use the time that He's blessed me with. And so I
Mhm.
love hearing some of these things that you're saying there because it sounds like you're trying to help people get to that where it's not just like living for a job, where it's discovering this joy that is available to you as you serve in your calling.
Exactly. And
Mhm.
we'll celebrate the hustle. I have
Yes.
no hesitation in saying this is your hustle time. Keep your
Yep.
head down, work, and
Mhm.
do the job that you're not super thrilled in if you know that it's going to serve an end that is a good fit. There
Right.
are times where the hustle is needed, and sometimes we go so quickly to aspire for that point where the money just works for us that we forget that with everything it requires some skin in the game,
Oh,
and
yeah.
we have to do the hard work to get to that point. And it's okay, it's not a failure to hustle. It is
Mhm.
part of the stepping stone that gets us there. Somebody has to make the ground, the cement for the stone, right? Like we
Right.
have to have the hard work in the process. And so that's where we're giving full permission for the hard work, for the grunt,
Mm.
for the grind, for the I don't know, as we continue to find the focus and the why that makes it worthwhile.
Mhm. I
Yeah.
like that. There are 2 phrases that I've heard you use, just in recent days and in different contexts. I'm gonna quote them both, and I'd love to get your reaction to both of these. One, you've
Okay.
talked about this idea of a functional education. Right? This
Yes.
idea of a functional education. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. And then the other phrase is this idea that the uniqueness in each of us strengthens all of us. So these
Love
are
it.
these are
Okay.
these are comments that you have made. These are I don't know if you'd consider them mantras or kind of guiding principles behind what you're doing, but could you just elaborate on each of those for us? This idea of functional education and then uniqueness in us strengthening all of us.
For sure. So when I about 10 years ago, while dad was really focused on the business side, that's when I really started focusing on the marriage and family side. And so I created
Mhm.
Mama Says Namaste. I had a podcast for 7 years with my
Mhm.
husband and I talking marriage and family. And I really carried that side kind of in collaboration with dad. So he,
Mhm.
the marriage and family was with me and with that was with him. And functional education was a big reason why people came to me because they were looking for options outside of the traditional homeschooling environment that they knew, but they didn't know what options were out there.
Mhm.
And we have unschooled our children from the get-go. One has graduated. She graduated at 16, and
Mhm.
we have two more to go. And unschooling is a version of homeschooling that basically is there's so many different labels and titles, but I will just say in our approach, what we did was really what I have now labeled as this functional education approach. So I want you to
Mhm.
think about functional medicine. Functional medicine is all about saying, let's not just look at the arm disconnected from the rest of the body. We want to look at the mind, body, soul, how it's all integrated and how everything is working together in order to find out the why here. With functional education, that is a concept for me that says, I don't care how old I am or where I am, I have the ability to learn something. And
Mhm.
so my education is not confined to the walls of a classroom, to a grade level, to an age, or to any cap on knowledge. And
Mhm.
so it's a total communication type of environment where
Mhm.
I'm looking at anything and everything. So I am an opportunist when it comes to learning, and I'm looking for every situation. What can I learn from this? What does this make possible? How can I pivot and grow from this? So
Mhm.
that's the functional education mindset. And that's where I really instill that with everybody because I say, regardless of whether or not you're homeschooling your children, like you are teaching them. Do you want to be
Right.
intentional about that or not?
Mhm.
Because they are learning from you. You've
Oh,
written
yeah.
a curriculum they're following, regardless of whether you're okay with it.
Right.
So it's getting intentional about the fact that we all are living it with the opportunity for functional education at any point, and are we looking for those learning opportunities around us?
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh, and what
So
about this idea then of, like in light with these opportunities that are around us, there's kind of a unique way that we'll all connect with that and or kind of notice that or even invest ourselves in that. So this other idea of the uniqueness in each of us strengthening all of us. Could you elaborate on that as well?
Yes, and that originally came to me because I was looking up content and ideas for creating a family vision. And that one
Mhm.
kind of stood out to me that I loved because to me, what it means is all those things that are unique about us are what create a synergy that's greater than us. And
Mm,
so just as I am, my husband and I have a very close, very beautifully connected relationship.
mhm,
I don't say that he completes me and I am not there without him. I say I am much I love who I am even more. I am a better person of who I
mhm,
am when I am with him because of the synergy we create together.
mhm.
And that's really what I mean. The uniqueness in each of us strengthens all of us is us recognizing we have different strengths to bring to the table. And if we can be aware of those, the more we can see those as opportunities to help and support one another. Because the reality is I have a tendency to move really fast, get to the bottom line, and be very, very fast paced, quick decision maker. And that is great in some scenarios. And in others, I miss the details or asking the
Yeah.
questions I should have, and I'll get myself in over my head. I
Yep.
need that person who I may have seen them as the negative Nancy because all they're doing is poking holes in poking holes in my balloon and well, what if and all of the negatives. But on the flip side, can I see them in a different light? And can I see them as they're paying attention to the detail that I missed? And
Right.
if I can take this into consideration, then we both can move forward way more educated because I may be the push to get them to actually move, and they
Mhm.
may be the discernment that helps me to make the right call. And so
Right.
now all of a sudden, we both are going to be able to make something greater because we are respecting each other's differences in what we can bring as
Mhm.
opposed to that being something that divides us. And don't
Oh,
we
yeah.
need more unification right about now instead
Oh,
of
yeah.
more division?
Yeah, well, that would be nice, wouldn't it? In
Yeah.
an ideal world, that would be a lovely thing. Your words
It
remind
would.
me of 1 Corinthians 12. It talks a lot about the fact that, the fact that the Lord's gifted people differently, and no one can look at another person and say, "I don't need you," right?
Exactly.
Because we have a way of uh, making up for the areas where we're not terribly strong, but then also offering those strengths to others and doing that in a very cooperative way if we're doing it correctly.
Mhm.
I like that. Well, as you look forward to the future of 48 days, as you look forward to the all the things that you're doing with the Eagle Alliance, I wonder what's most exciting to you about what's on the horizon here?
I have to be honest that the personality styles has been the driving force for what I have done for 48 days, even since the beginning. I mean, my first experience with it was absolutely terrified at 12 years old. My parents, as part of my homeschool creative writing assignment, making me read my paper I had written about personality styles in front of the Sunday school class that eventually became the book 48 Days to the Work You Love. Um, Even at 12, I was so passionate about understanding personality styles and how we approach things from different perspectives. Um, that has been, and I feel that that's my message of how I can share with the world is before we attack, before we get frustrated, before we shut something out, let's look at it from a different perspective. And can we take that moment to seek to understand and to recognize there are many ways to look at different scenarios. And if we can give each other a little bit more grace and understanding, and I feel like having something like a profile, having something, again, if we can use these as tools for self awareness as opposed to excuses and more stances that we stand by.
Yeah,
I'm not just
yelling at each other.
I'm not just a D, I'm not just a 7, I'm not just a whatever, you can use whatever. There is more than that. But if I can
Right.
look at it and I can recognize, okay, as a D or a 7, this person is going to be really great in leadership, but if they feel out of control, they're going to start being a micromanager and nitpicky and insensitive. So maybe when that person starts being a jerk, instead of just shutting them down, I can give them a little win. What's an opportunity for them to get a little win and a little breather?
Yeah.
Our lives are So often we think of extremes, and I've got to muscle through, muscle through in order to find joy. And what happens is it will always remain one day until we put a date on it.
Mhm.
And one day I'm going to have fun. One day I'm going to relax. And you wait too long, you've forgotten how. Or
Yeah.
you've sabotaged the relationship so you don't have anybody to do it with. And so we've got to find those little moments of connection, those little wins, those little joy sparks in life on a daily basis so that we have the will to keep on going and we see
Mhm.
that drive and that connection with each other. And so the thing I'm most excited about is helping more and more people understand just that there are many perspectives and nuances in life. It's not that we need to sit and argue our black and white stances, but if we can seek to understand each other a little bit more, we can go so much further with what all of us can create as a whole, and we create that synergy. So my dream is to really have so much of 48 days fueled just businesses
Mhm.
using DISC on a regular basis in their companies. I've seen such merit in that using for leadership purposes and for hiring and for better understanding how to find people that really are a great fit in their roles. So that is my ultimate passion, is to have that just flowing consistently, that
Mhm.
businesses are actively looking at ways to see their employees and see their company and everybody that they are working with as individuals, all with beautiful things to bring to the table. That's my main passion, and then we'll be talking about all of it in the Eagle Alliance community and
Love it.
how well we all can bring our own spark to the table.
One of the most insightful things that I ever experienced early in my leadership years was going through the DISC assessment. So, if anyone's listening and they're not familiar with it, you need to go through this. It's very beneficial. Profiles D, I, S, and C, and
Mhm.
figuring out where I was on that. And I discovered somewhere along the way that I project one profile. So, in looking at me, like in a context like this, you might think that I lean in one direction, but then under stress, when I'm
Uh-huh.
really being real, um, the other profile shows up. There, I don't know that you'd even be able to guess these. It's not even fair to ask that, which means I'm still going to ask. You said you're a D, right?
Yes.
Okay. What do you think I project?
My guess would be, as a business owner, that there is a thought and an understanding that you have a bit more D. And my guess is you probably are a bit more of a, and I don't know you well enough to know, but how many interviews do you do on these versus regular?
We usually do like one a month, and then the rest are solo shows.
Okay, then I would probably say maybe an SCI combo.
Okay.
That
So
sounds
you
right.
nailed the primary one. The
Okay.
primary one is a D. And it's so
Uh-huh.
funny because, when you look at that, it's like D. Well, those are the drivers. Aren't D's mean, Ashley? I don't,
That's the
I don't.
misconception, right? The C's are super analytical and the D's are jerks. And the
Yeah.
reality is I can give you a really positive and a really negative on each one of them for sure.
So you nailed it. My primary one is a D, and then there's a combination of the other ones. But the and look at this, and you said you're a D as well, and somehow we didn't have any conflict in this entire conversation.
There is there is great merit in not only knowing your personality style, but recognizing how you can meet people where they are in what
Yeah.
they do. And I actually did a book review on a book that I highly recommend. We have no affiliation with it at all, but it's Merrick Rosenberg's book, Chameleon. And I did a post where I talked about it, how to be a chameleon without losing yourself.
Mhm.
And Merrick Rosenberg has really focused on disc. He associates it with birds, and he really talks about it being about the communication and the connection. And that's where I've taken it, is this is the language of empathy. This
Mhm.
is not to, to point the finger or to claim the stance as much as it is to see the different approaches that we can come. I mean, if we were to simply divide the extremes, there are four very different approaches to life. And the reality
Mhm.
is, we as adaptable people probably could play in each one of those categories at some point. So
Yeah.
this is really that key element of, let's look at where our sweet spot is and how we recharge. And then we can also, as we learn this language of empathy, we can start to identify in others. So we see that person that's highly animated and we know, okay, how can we help to balance that in a way that is still a positive and not a drain. And so we learn to be better stewards of each other, not
Mhm.
manipulative,
Right.
and not controlling of other
Mhm.
people, but allowing space for others to shine in different ways. And we're
Mhm.
very much a me, me, me society right now. And apparently, even with our social media, it's just about a
Oh, yeah.
stance. It's not about allowing space for others. And that's where I think that's where I want to use DISC as a way to allow space for others and bring some empathy language into our
Mhm.
conversations.
Love that. Thanks for doing that. Ashley, it's been really fun having you with us this week on the Online Business Blueprint. Glad you've been
Yes.
able to be with us. And I wonder if people are listening to us right now and they'd love to connect and learn more about the Eagle Alliance. Where's the best place for them to start?
All right. I've got two places here. 48dayseagles.com. That gives you everything for the Eagles Alliance. Um, because we've been talking about DISC on here, I also want to share we've got it's a free download and it's communication tips on DISC. So it
Mhm.
will give you an understanding of the different personality styles there, just a quick cheat sheet of what those are. And what I love is what I focused on with it is how to communicate. If you're talking to a
Mhm.
D, bullet points are great. If you're talking to an I, make room for storytelling and conversation. So
Mhm.
it gives you some pointers for how to interact with each personality style. So again, very much in the how do I use this for the language of empathy versus screaming my stance here. So if you go to 48days.com, and that's just the numbers 48days.com /U. And if you do the /U, that gets you to that landing page, and you'll go ahead and get a free download there to kind of wet your palate on what this profile is and see if it's something you want to dig into. And yes, you will get information then about the Eagles Alliance as well.
Love that. 48days.com/you.
Mhm.
So very good.
Yes.
Ashley, thanks so much for joining us. It was truly a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you very much. It was an honor. I appreciate it.